This is Washington Business Tonight.
And now back to one of our top stories from today. The announcement made by General Dynamics that fall-off in corporate jet buying is forcing major layoffs at several of their plants. A year ago, the New York Times was touting the use of private jets as the new normal for the well-to-do. Now corporate giants are giving up their private fleet, while business users across the board are preferring to stay home or fly commercial. Ed Dolan is the president and CEO of the Business Aviation Association, and he's here to talk about what you all are doing in these times. Ed, first let's start with the General Dynamics news. What are you all seeing across the board in the aviation, the private aviation industry?
Well, the business aviation industry has always followed general economic trends. So like the commercial airlines, when the economy expands, business aviation expands. When it contracts, business aviation contracts. We're in one of the worst economic times since the Great Depression, so of course the business is contracting. We're concerned, however, because we believe that that downward trend has been exacerbated lately by some statements that have been made by opinion leaders and policymakers that have suggested that business aviation may not be appropriate. And certainly what we're trying to do is be very active in making sure people understand that while there may be times it is not appropriate, there are a huge number of times when business aviation is prudent, cost-effective, and in some cases the only way to get where you're going.
When members of Congress go overseas and have to be on appointments on time and get to countries on time, they fly in their own private planes. One of the things that I thought was noteworthy was when the CEOs of, I think it was the automakers, were called to task for coming to town in their corporate jets. They did make the case, look, this is congressional testimony. We didn't want to be late, and they couldn't count on arriving on time unless they took their own fleet. What are some of the times that you think it's most important for people to explore this idea of private aviation?
Well, we've got software so people can always compare the economics of commercial versus business aviation, and we urge them to do that. But clearly there are cases where if you need to be in communication with your home office throughout the trip and you need to discuss company business and not be worried about someone overhearing private conversations, then that part has got to be on a business aviation aircraft. If you're trying to do multiple sites in a single day, if you are trying to carry a product that can't be carried on the commercial airlines. So there are cases where we've got over 30 communities that have lost all commercial airline service within the last year. In all of these cases, business aviation is appropriate, prudent, and in some cases, as I said, the only way to get there.
Now, I'm old enough to remember the days when we would fly, and there were cities, far more cities that you could fly to directly. There were far more options in case you times of the day. It's simply not that way in flying anymore. And what this New York Times article last year that I remember reading talked about is how business leaders simply felt that the only way they could be efficient and be the most productive was to fly private aviation. Why do you think it's been such a sharp drop-off?
Well, going back to your comment, you know, business aviation is a real lifeline to these communities that are losing commercial airline service, either the frequency or the service altogether. So for those companies that are headquartered in those communities or have plants and facilities, they simply have to be there. And certainly the whole community, all the jobs associated with that, rely on it.
We're about to run out of time, and I want to read to our audience an email that I got from one of our viewers who works for the Red Cross. She said, will you express gratitude to the head of the National Business Aviation Association tomorrow? A VP from NBAA by the name of Doug Carr worked closely with us following Hurricane Katrina and helped secure planes to help us get key people working with the Red Cross to the affected areas. We could not have done it without their help. You all are launching a new message, No Plane, No Gain, and in part you talk about the philanthropic work that you do. You didn't know I had received this, but I did. So clearly people see the value that you bring to the table.
Well, I appreciate that. No Plane, No Gain is about trying to make sure people understand that business aviation in the United States means good jobs, manufacturing service, lifeline to communities, important to small businesses, but also those humanitarian efforts, very important part of what we do.
Clearly key to the Red Cross, and we thank you for coming in today. We'll be right back with more on Washington Business Tonight.